There was nothing better than settling down for some in school computer time in the 90s. Why? Well, you had great games. If you clicked on this video, then you remember exactly what that feeling was like. In today's video, we are going to review 7 of the best educational games of the 1990s and take a look at what made them so great and what made some of them bomb so hard, but that's another video. And we start with the game that sort of made some of us like math, the Math Blaster series. This one might be recognizable to more than just 90s kids, as the first Math Blaster game actually came out in 1983, with additional versions coming out in 1987 and 1990 before spawning additional versions of the same game. The premise of Math Blaster was relatively simple. You were presented with math problems and had to launch your little player into the correct answer. And, at least in the beginning, that was it. This game was a clever attempt to get players to actually care about math by adding a cannon. Of course, it was a little more advanced than that, particularly as later versions came out that adapted to more advanced hardware. The game came with an editor that allowed parents and teachers to create their own problems, thus customizing the game to the audience themselves. This simple play, meant primarily for kids between 1st and 6th grades, allowed the game to become a long-held classic. By 1997, the entire series sold more than 5 million copies and became the best-selling educational computer math game of all time. There were, as you probably remember, many versions of the game. In addition to the 83, 87, and 90 versions of the basic game, the Blaster Learning System, as it would come to be called, would expand to other areas. For example, 1985 saw the release of Alge Blaster, meant for older kids, as well as Math Blaster Mystery. Later versions would also feature animated scenes and voice acting. Those include Math Blaster Episode 1, In Search of Spot, and Math Blaster Episode 2, Secret of the Lost City. These games folded in narrative elements, protagonists, and more advanced gameplay functions into telling the story of math. Indeed, the entire Blaster series would expand to dozens of games, multiple academic areas, including reading, spelling, science, and writing, and even came out with a 1999 Saturday morning cartoon, Blaster's Universe, that aired on CBS. By 2011, the entire series shifted to browser-based games, but it appears that support for those games ended in 2023. That being said, the series lasted 40 years, an astonishingly long time, and an age that may be older than at least some of you listening. Next is the Putt Putt series, and there are a lot of them, something that may be a shock for those of you who, like me, primarily played one game. The origins of Putt Putt are thankfully adorable. Series creator Shelley Day invented Putt Putt as a character for bedtime stories for her son Travis. Day, a video game producer, would go on to form Humongous Entertainment, which would serve as the developer and publisher of the Putt Putt series. The first game in the series was Putt Putt Joins the Parade. These games, meant for kids between 3 and 8, serve as a point-and-click adventure. In the game, you play as Putt Putt, a living car, engaging in a series of point-and-click style adventures where you collect objects and solve basic puzzles. Later games would build on this format, albeit in different circumstances. As best I can tell, the two most popular games of the series, in addition to Putt Putt Joins the Parade, are Putt Putt Saves the Zoo and Putt Putt Travels Through Time. In Saves the Zoo, Putt Putt must rescue 6 missing baby animals. In Travels Through Time, Putt Putt has to, travel through time to recover objects and return home. From 1992 to 2003, 7 main series Putt Putt adventure games would be released. Another 2 games would be released that targeted a younger demographic. Fun fact, in 3 of these games, Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson and numerous other Simpsons characters, actually voices Putt Putt. Less fun fact, Shelley Day, creator of Putt Putt and founder of Humongous Entertainment, which developed and published Putt Putt, was sentenced to prison for defrauding a bank as part of an effort to purchase a home. Regardless, the nostalgia is strong for Putt Putt, and I know that because starting in 2011, Putt Putt games were available on re-release for different platforms. That includes iOS, Steam, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation. So if you are truly hankering for your childhood memories, or want to give your kids the same experience that you had, you can actually re-download these games now. While I couldn't find exact numbers, Humongous Games' website notes that their games have sold over 15 million copies, and it is safe to say that the Putt Putt series makes up a large portion of those sales. Next, one of my favorites, a game series that combined a classic book, fun graphics, and points a gross-out factor, the Magic School Bus series. The wildly popular series started as a classic book developed by Scholastic, give me a book fair now, my nostalgic bones yearn for it, and was written by Joanna Cole and Bruce Deegan. For those of you who don't remember, the book features wacky teacher Miss Frizzle and her magic school bus, which is capable of traveling into amazing locations. These include Inside the Planet, the Human Body, Beehive, and more. The series was started in 1986, and it remains active today. The Magic School Bus franchise, of course, was wildly successful. Its ability to blend humor with entertainment and knowledge captivated kids, and launched the series into a full-fledged media franchise. This included numerous animated shows and video games. The Magic School Bus series of games begins with the Magic School Bus Explores the Solar System, which first came out in 1994. In the game, users can fly to different planets, perform experiments, and try to find Miss Frizzle. The game was praised by critics and parents alike, and performed well enough to result in a second game. The Magic School Bus Explores the Human Body. In this game, the bus explores the inside of, well, Arnold, one of the characters. This one was massively interactive, with a ton of things for players to click on. Players are encouraged to visit different organs of Arnold's and collect passport stamps for doing so. They can play arcade games, complete experiments, and more. More games, based on already existing books, would come out. These include The Magic School Bus Explores the Ocean, The Inside of the Earth, The Age of Dinosaurs, and more. Later games would feature activity centers, which were less cohesive, but still really fun. They included In Concert and Land on Mars. Interestingly enough, these games were all computer-based. The first console game, Space Exploration, appeared in 1995 for the Sega Genesis. However, that would be it for the series on consoles until the release of 2011's Oceans, which appeared on the Nintendo DS. Mobile games would appear in 2010, but that is largely it for games based on the Magic School Bus series. At least we'll always have the inside of Arnold's intestines. This next one was a little bit specific and absolutely shows how dated some of these games are. In an era before every piece of information was available at our fingertips, and in an era before Wikipedia, there were real encyclopedias. Eventually, these thick books, or multi-volume sets as they used to be advertised on TV, made their way onto CD-ROMs. Recognizing that they needed to get people to click on their products for more than just looking up information, encyclopedia creators figured out entertaining and alternate ways to bring us in. And that led to Inarta's MindMaze. This quiz game, available on all Inarta versions made from 1995 to 2007, actually had a plot. You were in a castle that belonged to King Miser I. That castle, called the MindMaze, had been cursed, and the only way to break the curse was to wander the castle and correctly guess answers to quiz questions. Entering the castle gave you the option to select from one of 9 different areas, including social sciences, art, sports, and more, as well as select one of the numerous different difficulty levels. You would then answer questions, gaining more points for answering questions quicker. Answer enough questions, you free the inhabitants of the castle and escape yourself. You could click on links to read about answers, thus enabling you to potentially figure out the answer to questions by research. Thus, you could, learn. Can't believe they'd trick you like this. Of course, the game was more than just trivia questions, as it came in a maze-like form, and your job was to get your character to the exit. Clicking on a torch would help you see the outline of a maze and help you figure out where you needed to go. Also helping you progress through the game was the limited number of questions, which meant that you had questions and answers recycled. Yes, that got annoying very quickly. It was honestly a constant problem for trivia or knowledge-based games of this time period. You only had so much material to work with. That being said, good on the developers for Inarta. They made learning fun and challenging, and they often tricked you into learning something. Not a bad thing. Next is one of those slippery games that many of us may not have realized was actually educational. I am talking about The Incredible Machine, and this is one of those games that probably had countless kids deciding that yes, they really should be an engineer. With peppy, circus-like music blaring in the background, your job was to accomplish some end goal, like get a ball to a certain position or pop a balloon. Doing so required you to place obstacles, understand the role of physics, and use machinery to get other pieces of machinery to operate as you want them. Objects you had to manipulate included things like seesaws, boxing gloves, pulleys, and so much more. The Incredible Machine was so good because it was so clever. It seemed like a fun puzzle game, when in reality, it also taught you about physics, planning, and engineering. It also required you to understand the complex interactions between objects, as well as outside forces like air pressure and gravity. The first game, The Incredible Machine, came out in 1993. There wound up being multiple iterations of the game from there, including the even more Incredible Machine, The Incredible Machine 2, and multiple Toon versions. Compilations would be released in the 2000s, and an iOS version was released in 2011. You can still download versions of the game today. As you would expect, future games added levels, parts, and more. For example, The The Incredible Machine released with around 80 levels, while its immediate sequel, The Even More Incredible Machine, had about 160. The first game was a hit, selling more than 800,000 units, and it is safe to assume that future sequels also sold well. Indeed, the success of The Incredible Machine likely created a genre of specific Rube Goldberg puzzle games that led to the creation of other games, including Fantastic Contraption, Factorio, and the Kerbal Space Program. You can also download the game, dubbed as the spiritual successor to The Incredible Machine, Contraption Maker, on Steam. That game, produced by Jeff Tunnell, who also produced the first Incredible Machine game, has over 200 puzzles, 100 different parts, and allows players to create and upload their own puzzles for others to play. Of course, you cannot do a video on educational games without touching on what are the two biggest games in this genre during the 90s. First, of course, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? The cool story behind this game is that Carmen Sandiego didn't actually start as an educational game. It began as the brainchild of Dane Begum, who wanted to create a text-based adventure game for children. He started by trying to create a game in which kids could capture a criminal, and that, of course, evolved into Carmen Sandiego. In all fairness, calling this game a 90s game is a bit of a stretch because the first game came out in April 1985, but its impact, and subsequent sequels and additional media, would be felt largely in the 1990s and even beyond. Let's start with the first game. Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego gave players geographic clues, encouraging them to figure out where Carmen Sandiego was by investigating landmarks and flying from one location to the next. Successful players would learn geography and locations along the way, and while the game was not even intended to be educational, it proved to be highly successful in that regard. The original game started on the Apple II, but eventually moved to over a dozen different platforms, including the TurboGrafx, Genesis, and Super Nintendo. The game wasn't just a minor hit, it was a huge one, selling more than 4 million copies. This led to the sequel game, a deluxe version, which was released in 1990 and added more historical context, including digitized photographs from the National Geographic Society. Other games were also released during the same time period, including ones that took the Carmen Sandiego concept to Europe, the United States, and North Dakota. No, seriously, North Dakota. Anyway, these games obviously formed a larger media franchise, wherein time as Carmen Sandiego folded in players' knowledge of history. Later versions, also released in the 90s, would incorporate the use of additional academic genres, including getting players to learn about math and English through the release of Math Detective and Word Detective. Dozens of different games would eventually pop out, developed by numerous different developers over the past 4 decades. Of course, so would other media series. The Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game show gave birth to the most well-known earworm of the 90s, the a cappella version of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. The 90s even saw a cartoon version of the show, 4 decades since its inception, and Carmen Sandiego is still going strong. And finally, we conclude with the one and only Oregon Trail. That game defined an entire generation, caused endless giggles by answering the question, what do you want on your tombstone? The answer has to be poop, and caused countless of us to die of dysentery. The Gaming Historian has a video that is far better and more comprehensive than anything I could even begin to touch. And if you're interested in watching a video on Oregon Trail's history, I highly recommend that you watch that video, link in the description. In a nutshell, the game was created by 3 student teachers, Don Rawich, Paul Dillenberger, and Bill Heineman, as part of a student teaching project. It was first released in 1971, making it the oldest game on this list. The game found its way to the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium, which made educational software, and it was that company which hired Rawich to remake the game. The next version appeared in 1975, and from there, the rest is history. Most of us are probably familiar with the Apple II version. This is the one that appears in the most graphics, memes, board games, and memories. This version, designed by R. Philip Boucard, comes with the classic reduced color scheme. Like many other versions, it allows you to select your profession, which is really just another way of selecting difficulty, as well as stop for hunting, ford the river, talk with other wagons, and so much more. Dozens of versions of the game have appeared since 1971, appearing on a near endless number of platforms, ranging from mid-1970s computers to the iOS and all modern platforms. The later the game came, the more additional features it had, including updated wagon management systems, the ability to fish, enhanced historical accuracy, and more. While the game isn't quite as popular as it once was, owing to the range of competition now available in both the educational gaming and educational space, there is no question that it left a massive mark on history, selling at least 65 million units and making it one of the longest-running franchises in video game history. Its popularity, like just about every good game on here, stems from one simple fact. It figured out how to be educational without beating users to death with its educational aspects. It concentrates on historical realism, okay, to an extent at least, while also engaging in resource management, planning, and strategy. In so doing, it introduced countless kids to the hardship of life on the American frontier. It also made sure that we always checked the depth of the river before we tried to ford it. I actually feel pretty good about this list, at least compared to other lists that I've done. But as always, I turn it over to you, dear listener. What games did I miss? What did I get wrong? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like the video, please do like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the next video that the almighty YouTube algorithm has in store for you. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I like making it. Take care, everybody.